First book of John 4:17. Herein is our love made perfect, that we may have boldness in the day of judgment, because as he is, so are we in this world. And welcome back to another episode of a bunch of college kids who are Orthodox Christian and happen to have a podcast. On today's episode, we will be talking about how the pressures of school affect us.
So personally, with my experience in school, I struggled with a lot of peer pressure, with procrastination, with video games, and with going to parties and sports. Those were my struggles.
Yeah, I can relate. I can relate to what you're saying. Also, for me, I think it was also the engagement in my faith because, like, when I was in school and stuff, like I might not have been just as focused as I should have been in my faith and more into school, more into materialistic things. So that, and then it also affects like my spiritual life. You know what I'm saying, in multiple ways.
Yeah, school definitely takes a toll on us and our spiritual lives as well. We get stuck in the whole I want to be a part of everything that goes on during school. You want to go to all the dances, you want to go to all the football games, everything. And then you kind of lose track of yourself in the way because you want to be accepted by everybody. But at the same time, you also are trying to balance your faith. And it's really hard sometimes.
Point about learning how to balance her faith with school, especially one example I've had is that when I was in high school, I went to like a smaller Catholic school, and it's even though it's Catholic, it's not Orthodox. They still try to guide you in the right direction, and everything. And same with going to church camps and going to these church retreats. They'll when you're like a younger in high school, you're always like in a structured format of keeping your spiritual life well and like maintained. It's kind of like maintaining a car. Um, Got to constantly keep working on it. But one thing I've noticed as I've moved on to college, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have, college is cool because you have a lot more freedom in life, freedom to do what choices you want to make, and it also comes with a lot more responsibility. And sometimes I found that my spiritual life has been slacking, and that's my own responsibility. And one thing with that to know is that you are responsible for yourself and managing it, your spiritual life yourself.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. Like ever since we transitioned onto like online school, there's like been a lot of temptations I feel that are kind of impacting me even more severely than they once did before. Like I've been very slothful. Like I kind of just lounge around. I'll kind of take my time with things. I'll procrastinate a lot more often, and overall, it's just been kind of kind of hard to get used to. I'm still not even used to it, but yeah, I definitely feel that it's a lot of, a lot of struggle and temptation.
Yeah, for myself personally too, especially I think more so in college, because that's kind of when I really started to attempt and put more effort into my spiritual life and really develop it. So I began to really notice it more. Thankfully, thank God through the Holy Spirit that guides all of us to the best of our ability. And I found two main things for me personally. First was environment, and that was important to understand. Placing yourself in the right environment, so who's around you, especially being in college, especially when we were in person, the people you associate yourself with, and anyone that you hang out with. There's a lot of temptation out there. There's also a lot of good things. There's also a lot of positive places you can put yourself in. So I want to start off with those two to throw that out there. So first, environment, and then second of all, I feel like the thing about school is that sometimes we find ourselves chasing either a grade or a career, and we kind of lose sight of things, like Rita was saying earlier. And I feel like school, of course, school is a great place, and we all need to educate ourselves. But the problem, I think, is that sometimes personally, um, people on an individual basis get caught up on chasing the idea of school, get caught up in chasing a grade, get caught up on chasing career, that they lose sight of God in their spiritual life because they get concerned with everything else that kind of consumes you in that world. And they're legitimate concerns about life, but I feel like it does they kind of distract from the spiritual life sometimes, because so our good intentions can be used against us, and I feel like that's kind of what happens, because either our environment distracts us, or we kind of chase the wrong thing, or we chase something that diverts attention, instead of balancing our school.
Yeah, for me, I can totally agree with what you're saying, man. Like, I can see how like chasing, like having goals in life are good and all right. It's all good to have goals, like earthly goals and money wise and career wise and professional wise. All that is good, but yeah, it's definitely, I guess you could say, easy in a sense to be chasing those goals, and while you're doing that, you're not keeping your same goal spiritually, and which is like way more important. So like, yeah, that's one of those things that I think everyone should be attentive of, like, myself first, obviously. And then also, I want to piggy off what Chris said about like being like during this like time at home with school, like being lazy and stuff like that. Like that's something I noticed too. Like it's so easy to be lazy. Like who's gonna see you other than God? Like you can like just sit home like watch YouTube all day. I mean, not all day, I guess, but you know what I'm saying. Like you can be so lazy, and yeah, I just wanted to piggyback off that. I see where he's coming from. So I think we should move on to like how we just talked about the problems with school and faith, and how they it's trouble for them to coincide at times. But what's some good things about school, and even more importantly, what's some ways we can reverse the bad things that we were just talking about with peer pressure, with laziness, and stuff of those like stuff like that we were talking about. What's some ways that you guys personally have found to, change it, change your ways, and have discipline in those certain aspects of your life?
Well, for me, at the beginning of the pandemic, it was really hard for me to get back on track with what was like important at my studying, right? Um, I think I was taking 15, 16 units, and I mean it's a good amount of units, but it's really hard for me to study online. I think it was more of the mentality of it, and especially because I was studying at home now. Because normally I would study in the library. So what I found that kind of helped me was changing my environment and changing my look at it. So instead of having like a desk in my room, I think of it as now like I'm in my office and I just sleep in my office like with a bed. So like I physically changed my whole room to make it look more of like a workspace with just a bed instead of it being a bedroom with a desk. I feel like that really helped me. And then with the laziness, you have to kind of force yourself, to get back into it, in a way, just kind of bully yourself into doing the things that are like, you don't really want to do, right? Because I mean, obviously we all just want to lay around, but in the long run, it's not healthy for us, and it's not healthy for us physically, and it's not healthy for us spiritually. So not only do you like go for walks, work on your physical health, but maybe try to learn more about saints, read the Bible a little more, work on your spiritual health as well. And that could really help you not only in the short term, but in the long term as well.
I think a part of that too, what you're talking about, is revolves around discipline. And I think that is, especially, when you went from in person to online, there's a big shift. Even without that, there was already the discipline in school. And personally, what I found to help me with discipline, to tie school and spirituality together, was my spiritual life. Through fasting and praying, going to church, and developing my spiritual life, and kind of developing having God as my foundation. I felt that allowed me to develop more of a discipline, and I was able to carry that discipline into school. And that can work for people vice versa. Maybe people have a discipline in school. You take that discipline, maybe that's time you set for homework, and maybe try to do that with time to read the Bible, or time to read something of the fathers, or time to pray. Or, set out that time for Sunday, that I have to do homework at this time, and maybe I want to go to church at this time, God willing. And I think just a big part of that is discipline, and you can tie spirituality and your school together in that way. And I think for me, the positive side of that, I was really able to tie them together and take one into another, back and forth, and kind of create that balance. And I think, first, for me personally, to give some tips, I think if you're using spiritual life to build that discipline, fasting, praying, going to church, reading, whether that's scriptures, words of the fathers. And I mean, nowadays there's things online. You could listen to podcasts, you could watch services. If you can't make it in person, especially nowadays, I know it's hard for a lot of people. And if you want to do it the other way around, if you're good in school and you're trying to build your spiritual life, the time you set for homework, try doing that for areas of your spiritual life. So discipline, I think, is a big part of that, and obedience, kind of like you have obedience to school and to your spiritual father and to God to the best of your ability. Also have, obedience. Really try to build that obedience in your spiritual life, like you do for school. So,
That's a really good way you explained it, Andres. Like how you explained it, how like kind of have like partners in a say, like you do this schoolwork, but at the same time after that you have to do this, like it's like partners or whatever. That's pretty cool how you explained that. I haven't thought of it like that until then. So yeah, that was a good point. I want to say that.
I agree with that, Andres. And one thing I've noticed that is a good solution that could help all of us, anyone who struggles with faith or anything, because obviously no one in this world is perfect. There's no one's a saint here. Um, One thing I've noticed that definitely helps is literally just us coming together, even though we're virtual. People coming together virtual, like as a community, really helps each other out because we all have the same goals and focus. And once God willing, we're back together in person, that could produce an even stronger faith and grow us all closer to God.
I definitely agree with that. Um, it's been really hard just like not being able to see everybody because of the pandemic, and the fact that we get to go online like once or twice a week to do virtual Orthodox studies just brings us closer together as like friends, but also closer together to God. And that is really important to do. And you got to make sure that you're always trying to keep God first, even though sometimes it's hard. Like you have to like finish an assignment and you like really got to do it because you want to get a good grade. But sometimes you just got to take that hour to just decompress and give yourself to Him. And yeah.
Yeah, I think you guys all hit the points. Another one little thing I would add, what really like helps me during the Sunday services and the online is to follow along with the prayers. I think that's very important with not just listening to the prayers for the Sunday services, but actually following along and actually understanding what is going on with the service and what is taking place. I think that's an important aspect also to help you through your spiritual life and understanding our faith. But yeah, I think you guys did a good job on hitting all the points.
so I know we're kind of coming to the end of the podcast here, but I do want to add two more points. First, that what Rita said about decompressing, I think it's important. And people kind of nowadays try to find a lot of ways to decompress. And I feel like one really good way is through that spirituality. Like Rita said, take that hour or take, 30 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever it is, that 30 seconds to say a prayer, that 5 seconds to just breathe and do whatever you have to do. And I think um, spirituality helps with that, whether that's reading, for 30 minutes just to decompress, whether that's just praying, to be honest with you, sitting back and doing nothing. And I don't mean being lazy, I mean sitting back and just taking a moment of silence and reflect on that, just sitting down and staying away from the world, putting your phone away for 30 minutes and just sitting back, laying down and having that time of silence and maybe reflecting on God and praying or just sitting there in quiet. And I think the second point that's really important, especially that is a lot more relevant now, and Rita mentioned the Zooms that we do with the faith studies during the week. And I think that kind of builds on to our need for a community because right now, during the situation with everything online, it's kind of hard to have that community. And I think that through the Zoom, it has helped people build that community. And our faith study gave people the need for community because I've met people I haven't met before, and not being able to see a lot of people not being able to see a lot of people in person, and filling that community space through whatever. I mean, now it's virtually, but with that faith and meeting other people of the same faith or who are striving to understand the same faith, then it helps build that community and uh, it helps fulfill that need for community. I think that's another big important thing that's kind of been missed out, and especially that school offered was community. But at least with this pandemic and things being online, we could at least rethink our evaluation of how we view a community. And I like the spiritual aspect of the community, especially through the Zooms, personally.
Yeah, those are really good points you said. And adding on your first point, I thought I would say this because it came into my head. Like people like to vent, obviously, to like their best friends or like their cousins or their aunts or whatever, family, mom, dad, whatever. They like to vent to people when they're going through things or they have like problems with school, for example, or like friends or whatever. But I think also it's really cool, like, something I should do more, obviously, but I thought I would still share it, like venting to God, because I promise you, God is a better friend than anybody else, better than your mom, your dad, obviously they love you, but what I'm saying, but I thought I would just say that because it reminded me when you were talking about that in your first point, sometimes you don't have to be like all official and like, talk like, with big words or whatever. You can just vent, just like if talking to like your mom or whatever, just like, yeah, just when you're going through something with school or whatever, or just anything. So yeah.
God loves us all, no matter what.
Yeah, I think we said it last time. We're social animals, right? I think we brought that up last time. And this distance away from everybody, it just makes it so much, that much harder to like live. So it's I feel like it's really important to keep in touch with people, keep in touch with your friends, keep in touch with your family members, and not just texting, not just phone calls, but I think like Zoom and like FaceTime is also really important too, because we feed off of conversations and seeing people's reactions and facial expressions. So I think that's also something important for like your mental health and kind of coping with not seeing people as often as we used to.
That's so true, because we as people feed off of social contact, and us not being able to have that social contact like in person affects us more than we think. So we just have to make sure that we're trying to find a way to have that social contact, because if we don't, it'll just eat us up alive and we'll just fall into a crack and try to fight our way to come back out, and it'll be even harder to get out of that than just talking to someone, just finding someone to talk to. You can even talk to God. He's listening all the time. I promise you, he is. So just find that within yourself to do that.
You could also talk to your pets. I don't know. And then I'll like talk to my dog. I don't know if I'm going crazy or not, but like I'll talk for him too. So like I'll be like, "Yo, what's up, Max?" And he'll be like, "What's up, man?" Something like that.
Put that in the podcast. I want that in the podcast.
Are we gonna add that part in, Chris? Are we leaving this in?
I'm fine with it. Me and my dog Max, bro. We have the most interesting conversations. That's all I gotta say.
Rita, do you do this with your cat? Don't lie.
I talk to my cat sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. She's the only one that listens to me sometimes.
But does she ever talk back?
You, Michael?
How does she sound? How does she sound?
I do, unfortunately.
Khalil?
Who, me or?
Oh, well, Lilo, but also you.
I talk to my animals, yes, but I don't talk for them. They have their own voice. They can talk to me if they want to. I mean,
What?
They can't talk back to you. Like, but you won't understand what they're saying though.
No, they just bark. You gotta put a voice for them. Like I think Max is Australian. That's how I imagine Max. Like he's like, "Hello, mate." Like it's funny when I talk to Max. That's what me and Max say.
Do we need to apologize to the viewers right now for how we're derailing talking about animals? I don't have a pet, so I don't know.
Animals. Dude, I love animals.
I wouldn't mind if Chris wanted to get into AI right now. I wouldn't mind. He can go into
what?
If Chris wanted to go into AI right now, he can
go. Bruh, I'm down to go into AI, bro. Who knows? AI can replace pets someday. I don't know.
I said
no, but dude, I like making, like when I'm talking to my dog, I like making his voice high pitch, because have you guys ever watched the movie Up? Well, obviously you guys have, right? Like how that big giant dog has
big Rottweiler.
Yeah. I have a German Shepherd, and he's like, he's like, he could really, he's strong. And I just like imagining him with like a squeaky voice. So just to clarify, that's why I had the squeaky voice. Just I'm not crazy.
That's a really good point, Chris. You can talk to your pets too. They listen to us sometimes. But back to our main focus of school is really hard, and sometimes we just got to figure out how to find that balance, and it takes a lot of time. But once you figure out what helps you, then you'll be feeling so much better about yourself. And on that note, this is going to be the end of our podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully, we'll see you guys next time. And this is Precious Vessel with Michael, Andres, Khalil, Chris, and Rita.